Hi, Dustin from Roland, here today with Sweetwater, and I'm going to take you through some of the newest additions to the SP-404MKII Creative Sampler. We just released version 4.04, and this major update adds a huge stack of features that not only offer new creative tools for recording, effecting, sequencing, and manipulating sampled audio, but also make it possible to integrate the SP into more diverse setups. Today, I want to focus on 3 new features and take a bit of a journey together to start building a track out from beginnings, recording, getting things laid out on a sequencer, and then eventually getting it out of the SP into a computer so we can keep working on it. The 3 features we'll cover are loop capture, which is a live looper with overdubbing, undo, redo, and more. Preset measure length recording, which makes recording and resampling audio to exact lengths a breeze, meaning you can lay down clean-cut ideas very quickly. And finally, Multipad export. This powerful new feature makes it so that once we have a track built up on the SP, we can export each of the individual parts as their own WAV files. But first, let's take a really quick top-level look at the SP and all of its ins and outs. This really is such a unique and powerful instrument and tool. It can be used in so many different ways, and even more so now with the 4.04 update. Now, in a nutshell, the SP-404MKII handles and deals with samples, sampled audio. Those samples live on pads. You've got 10 banks of 16 pads. Each can hold a different sample. Can be anything. Drums, guitars, synthesizers, and you've got tons of legendary and modern effects in the SP as well. Let's take a listen to a couple of them. Got lush reverbs, and these can affect internal sounds as well as the external sounds coming from the inputs. So let's take a listen to another interesting delay, this cloud delay. Tons of creative effects, and you can resample audio, re-record it onto a pad, and keep going and going and going. Samples can then be organized into patterns. Now, we won't go over too much of that today, but you can put any of your samples, be it longer loops or one-shot kind of drums, into pattern sequencer and play them in pattern chains so you can get a song structure. It really does go deep. In terms of connectivity, there's a wealth of options, and we'll probably end up using most of them during the video today. On the front, we've got a 1/4" input that's switchable between mic and guitar impedance with a gain knob. You've got dual headphone out, one 3.5mm, one 1/4". On the back, you've got your 1/4" stereo output, 1/4" stereo line input. You've got MIDI in and out, and you also have USB-C. And that USB-C can do bidirectional audio and MIDI to devices like computers, tablets, and phones. All right, jumping into loop capture first, let's get connected. I'm going to be using guitar. To start out, I'm going to plug directly into the front input, make sure I'm switched to the guitar side, and just for reference, I'm going to be using pedals before I hit the SP. I'm going to use the IR2 amp and cabinet simulator, and in the loop, in the effects loop, I'm going to put a DD8 to have a little bit of delay. All right, so the very first thing you're going to want to do once you have any source plugged into the SP is make sure you press external source. Now this button will turn the audio input on and off for all sources at the same time. Got my guitar running, sounded pretty good. Now, you might have noticed something as soon as I started playing. This mark button started to flash. Now, if I press this, this is what's called skip back sampling. Now, the SP-404 is, depending on your settings, it can be always listening, always recording. All right, check this out. That was me turning the external button on and off. Right, so it literally just recorded just when I was playing. I was just noodling around. So if I liked something that I played, I could easily just save that to a pad. And just get an idea down. Great sketch machine. Now the reason I wanted to point out the skip back sampling is because the new loop capture actually is an option that replaces the use of that recording buffer. So let's take a quick look how to get loop capture going. We just hold shift, press enter, and it's going to say, do you want to enable looper? Yes, we do. All right, so let's dive in. We can again press the mark button, and now we're in the loop capture screen. Now, this can be used freely or with a set BPM and set bar length. Many different ways to use the looper. Let's just do a really quick intro to use it free, just like any looper pedal you might use, right? And I'm going to use the controls on the front of the SP-404. So I'm going to press record, and because I have auto trig to on, it's going to start recording as soon as I start playing. Right? Press record, it's going to start looping. If I wanted to overdub, I can press resample. Done resampling. And I can undo and redo as well. It's that easy, right? There's lots of other settings in here, but let's try to get hands-free with this and add in our foot switch. So external MIDI control over loop capture is absolutely killer because you can use a foot switch like the FS1WL. Now, I'm just going to use this to control the most basic functions, and those are going to be recording, overdubbing, and deleting. Now, you can have even more control. If you look on the screen, these are all of the different parameters that you can control, including undo and redo, playback rate, and all that. Let's keep it simple for today. And this is going to be able to connect directly to the SP just via TRS MIDI, so 3.5 millimeter MIDI. I'm going to get that connected up right now. And just a little bit of prep work is required to make sure that the MIDI messages being sent from the foot switch line up with the SP. This is easily done on the FS1W companion app, which can connect to phones, tablets, or computers. Just make sure that the CC numbers match up with the ones you see on screen. This info is also available in the SP-404MKII manual. So, getting this all connected up, MIDI out to MIDI in. Let's power on the foot switch and we'll see what we got going. So, in loop capture, as you can see, this is controlling play and stop on an overdub and then delete. And as you can see, resetted it. So I'm going to get this foot switch down on the ground so I can actually use it with my feet. All right, now I'm set up with the foot switch on the floor, and let's get a little bit more intentional with the looper. Now, what I mean by that is I want to record exactly 4 measures at a specific BPM because I got an idea I want to put together here. All right, so I've got it set to 4 measures. I'm going to use the foot switch to enable recording, and only in my headphones right now, I have a click, I have a metronome, so I'll be able to record in perfect time. Let's lay down an idea, and also I'm going to turn on resampling, which is auto overdub. So when it gets around to the top, it's going to keep recording. I'll get any delay trails in there, and I'll actually record a second part over top. Let's get it. All right. Great. So now I've got that nice guitar part, it's got a harmony in there, and you can keep going with the looper, of course, layering. You could send the looper through effects like this, hold down shift, go to different bus effects. Let's play it. Let's put it through some delay. But what I want to do is put this on a pad. I'm done with this as my original idea now. Got the loop. I'm going to put it to a pad simply by pressing copy, selecting the pad I want to save it to. Let's go pad number 5, and it's done. And we exit out of looper mode. We can see we've got the sample right here. We could chop it up, but I've got an idea. Again, I want to keep working on it. I want to add more to this and start incorporating this loop, this sample, as the basis for a track idea. Let's move on to the next step. So you heard earlier that I was playing some different types of samples on the pads, including drum sounds. Now I have this drum loop here. It's actually 8 bars long. Now, what I want to do is start to create a pattern, and I'm not going to get too deep into the pattern sequencer, but all you need to know is that the pattern will be sequencing different samples at different times. But today, I just want to put, the sample on the downbeat of each. So I'm going to go into pattern select mode, and I'm going to press record. Now, what happens when you go to pattern select is the pads switch from controlling individual samples to now controlling and launching patterns. So I'm going to press record and I'm going to say I want this to be on pattern location F1, and I can choose how long I want the pattern to be. I want it to be 8 bars. Now you can record pads in live, so essentially the triggers for each of those samples, you can record it on the pads, and in that case you would want to put this to full strength quantizing. That just means if you make a mistake, you're not right on beat, it'll be perfectly on beat. But what I want to do that's even easier for today is go into TR rec mode, which is essentially like a drum machine, a step sequencer. So I'm saying I just want to be able to literally choose which step each of these recordings goes onto, each of these pads, and it's going to be 8 bars in length. So I'm going to press record, and you can see I've got 8 different windows here of 16 steps each. Now all I care about is the very first downbeat. I'm going to hold subpad, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put our loop on step 1, and that's going to play as soon as it gets back to the top. Now I'm also going to put a drum loop on step 1. Now let's take a listen here. So just got around to the top. Drum loop I selected. Press subpad to select the sample. Drum loop on step 1. Let's hear them together. All right. If I exit out of pattern record, now it's a little clearer that this pad is going to launch that pattern. If I exit out of pattern select mode, we're back into live pad playing mode, right? So let's go back to pattern. Now, what I want to do is add another part, and this is where the second feature we're going to talk about today comes in, and that is preset measure length recording. So what I want to do is add a bass sound, and we'll get it set up on our input first, and then we'll take a look at how to record exactly 8 bars to add a bass part to this pattern. Well, it is a sad state of affairs, but I don't actually own a bass guitar. Now, that's not a problem right now, because in addition to the bus effects that are in the SP-404 that sound really good with a guitar, did I mention that? Yeah, so in addition to those effects, there's also a dedicated effects for the external input. Check this out. So I'm going to go to Input Settings, go to Input Effects. You can see there's a ton of different effects to choose from. I'm going to go to Auto Pitch, and we got it down an octave. And let's see if I can get a decent bass sound. Not bad. All right, jumping back over to the pattern area on the SP, what I want to first do is make sure that my external source, my input settings, shift and external source, are turned to not mix but external in, because I don't want to re-record when I'm doing the resampling process. I don't want to re-record the pattern. That's a really cool and powerful thing to do that you're going to want to do sometimes. Right now, I just want to record the external input, my guitar/bass, onto its own pad alongside the pattern, but I want it to be its own individual recording, right? So we're going to go, when we're in pattern mode, press resample, and I'm going to select which pad I want this to record to. Okay, and I also want to go shift and count in, and I want 1 bar for nothing before the recording starts. And finally, here's what we really want to do is set this Control 2 knob to the bar length, the measure length that we want to record. I want exactly 8. So now what's going to happen, I'm going to get 1 bar for nothing, I'm going to record 8 bars, and it's going to be done. Here we go. So you see it stopped right away, and now on pad 6, I've got the bass part I recorded, and now it's ready to be added to our pattern, just like we added the drums. Nice. Okay, now it's time to ditch the guitar. I'm gonna add a couple different parts in the exact same way that you just saw, but I'm going to use some different inputs. We won't go through and wait for the entire process, but I'm going to record some synthesizer via the line inputs, and then I will mention a little bit before I do it, but I'm going to record from external source on the iPhone. Let's check this out. In version 4.04, we just added support for the immensely popular Koala Sampler app. Now, I'm going to open up the app right now, and the SP has a whole control mode back and forth. We're not going to look at that today. All I want to do is something really cool where you can use the internal microphone on the iPhone, and you're able to use it as a live mic in the SP-404. Okay, I'm going to add one more element, just a little crash cymbal. I've got a sample already here somewhere. Let's take a listen. So now, what I want to do is get things into the computer so I can keep working on it in my DAW, or export these audio files to share with someone else if they want to mix down, whatever we need to do next. So now what I'm going to do is connect the SP to the computer via USB-C. I have the SP-404MKII app open here. This is free, you can grab it on Roland Cloud. And I'm going to go ahead and press connect. And the SP is connected now. We can manage samples, but what I want to do is go over to patterns, and you see right here, I could just drag the pad that our pattern is on up to the right, make sure we select multipad mode, press OK. And now each of those separate parts is being exported as its own WAV file. Now that it's all done, we can see up in the right here, each of these listed, we can just highlight them and drag and drop directly into our DAW, and we're ready to keep working. So, as you can see, the version 4.04 update has powerful new features that welcome even more people into the SP family. Instrumentalists like guitar players, keyboard players, and let's not forget about vocalists, because there is a mic input on the front, can sit back in their comfort zone using features like loop capture or skip back sampling that we took a little quick look at to just lay down ideas. You're on your instrument, you know what you're doing, and once you capture something cool, throw it on a pad, add effects, resample it, start making a pattern with it, etc., etc. The SP-404 is there as a powerful creative tool for so many different types of workflows. Then, of course, we saw the preset measure length recording. Great just to get those clean cuts, boom, 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 idea after idea laid down. And then finally, multipad export, moving it to WAV files to the computer or the SD card to keep on working. Thanks for checking out some of these new features with me today. If you have any additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out to your Sweetwater sales engineer. And as always, stay creative.